for everyone that's in the room. Can I get a mic check, and is the visual looking good to you guys? Just drop that in the chat room. As soon as I get confirmation, we'll get started here. And the usual, if you guys have been here before, the stream's usually 30 seconds or so behind for everyone that's in the room. So just let me know if you can hear me, and then we'll get started right away. My dog's starting to bark. That's kind of the beauty of live broadcasts. Hopefully he doesn't go too nuts. We have someone moving out next door, so you know that's yeah. All right. Let's see. Come here. Come here, bud. All right, I think we might be good now. Can you guys hear me okay now? The barking dog. Let's see. Change scripts here. All right, I see people in the room, but nobody's confirming audio, so I can't start. Okay, I think we're good. I got confirmation now. So hopefully you guys can hear me. The stream's going to be about a minute or so behind. Sorry about the start. Dog's going nuts and a little bit of technical difficulties, but that's par for the course, I guess. So let's jump into it. So we're going to look at a few different things here. I really want to take your questions. So if you guys want to look at any markets, things that you're looking at, let me know, drop them in the chat. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. The stream's about 30 seconds or so behind. I'm going to run through just a few things that I'm looking at, just basic, some of the major markets. Covered them mostly yesterday in our recap video, so I don't want to spend too much time, but they're worth at least just taking a quick peek at today. Okay, I'm getting confirmation that audio is good. So let's jump into it. Sorry about the start here. S&P 500, we'll start there, the SPY. I'm not going to go too much in depth. Basically, we got a nice little pop today off of yesterday's week close. So yesterday we finally had a little bit of I mean, barely a down move, right? It was what, 50 cents to the downside. So not too much at all, retesting the top of this range. The key for us is that we didn't fall back into this old range. That was very important. And I know the ranges are tight. We're talking about 50 cents and 20 cents, but that's what we're dealing with right now. So we just kind of have to accept it. The fact that we did get that pop today, probably mostly from oil. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But we did get that pop today away from this old range, and we're back on course for grinding out to new highs. All right, so things look good here, right? The grind continues. It's not a high momentum market, but it's just a market where you want to do less, maybe widen up the stops, don't look at charts so much, and kind of just let things work themselves out. Let support try and get demonstrated and prove that there's some buyers showing up. So good. It looks like everybody can hear me. I see some requests coming in. Keep those in for you guys just joining. Just drop any charts or anything that you want me to look at, and we'll cover that in this video. Next, I want to look really quick at USO, because I think this is interesting here. USO for us, for me, the way I looked at yesterday's kind of 3% down move was the bears kind of getting back in control, right? They now should have had the power to sort of take us back down to those lows, but that didn't happen today, right? Notice we get a complete reversal, 4.8% to the upside. That's a very interesting event, right? This is a day that I take notice where the high probability sort of follow through to the downside or persistent weakness didn't happen, and we actually saw the opposite happen, and that's pretty telling. And I know this is still a very damaged chart, but that's a big win for the bulls, even if it's just the short term. You clearly have a good kind of level to manage risk against. So I think that's interesting for anybody that likes USO. Again, it looks troubled here, but maybe this pivot low that we put in a couple of weeks ago at 920 is something that might actually last as more than just a short-term low. It's just something to keep your eye on. I have no position in it. I see your request coming through. That's good. There's just a couple more I want to get through. VRX is one that I was asked about the other day, and yesterday actually. Now, yesterday and today, there's a big difference, right? 10% down move today, of course, after more news, lawsuits or insurance fraud, whatever the case is, right? I'm not going to get into that part of it. I though believe that VRX is in a bottoming process here, right? I'm not going to call, I'm not trying to call a bottom. That's not what I'm here to do. But it's got the signs of, starting to slow down on its sort of acceleration lower, while volume is sort of picking up. And I think, this bottoming process could take weeks, months, another year, 2 years. I have no idea. But I think, fluttering around down here in this, $20 to $30 range is something that we could be in for quite some time, or even $20 to $40 range. It's 100% range, so that's a big range. Just something to keep on mind. The volume pattern here, everything kind of picking up. You're seeing a lot of emotional kind of washouts. You're seeing perhaps some signs of accumulation. This was a huge day, of course, 2 days ago to start the week, or Tuesday actually. 25% upside on 100 million plus shares. That's a really big day there. So there's just a lot of changing of hands here, and I think you're in that process. I don't think it's going to be an easy, trade in any direction, right? Even if I do believe this is bottoming, I don't think it's going to be an easy long, because I think you're going to have these 10% moves that can happen. So that's just my 2 cents on VRX. I'm not tied to that, but someone asked me quick what my opinion was. I do think it's in some type of bottoming process here, but I'm not here to call bottoms or sort of predict any more of where that's going to go. Last one I'm going to look at today, and then I have a few trade ideas if we get through your names that you want to look at, is TWLO, TWLO. So this is having a huge day today, 10% upside move to all-time highs. This is something that we got into yesterday, right? So I'm a little biased here on why maybe I want to talk about it. But yesterday I think was an interesting day, and this is a little peculiar because this isn't our standard kind of setup, if you will. It's not as clean as we like to see. But yesterday was a really stealth all-time high in TWLO, and I don't know. I think that went really kind of under the radar. And what I like about it is people weren't talking about it, and it also sort of had that earnings, it just had earnings on Tuesday where it opened up higher. I think maybe people were thinking that would be the day to get going, and then it kind of fell down to, filled the gap, came back all the way down to $41, maybe washed out some hands, but then it restabilized pretty quick yesterday in a market that, closed pretty much near the low. So there was some outperformance there. It had a nice explosion today higher. There's no overhead supply here. It's a recent IPO. It's been basing out now below this $44 level for about a month, maybe a little bit more. So it's got some energy behind it, and the chase is now kind of back onto it. We did sell some today, but it still looks pretty good here. For more upside for sure. So the chase is on. It's extended, absolutely. I can't say I'd recommend buying it right now, but it's certainly in motion. It's doing the things that you want to see for stocks heading higher. So with that, let's open it up to questions here, and I got a few, so I'm going to run down the list here. For those of you who are just jumping on the stream, if you have questions, leave it in the chat. That's basically what I want to cover today. Let's get into it. So the first one, let's look at gold. First request that I see coming in. We covered this yesterday. This is one I've been pretty on top of. It's consolidating right now. Again, if you want to throw your time frame in there of what you're looking for, I could give you a more sort of precise read on this market. But for me, long-term weekly chart, we've been in a downtrend now, no surprise, since 2012 or maybe 2011 if you want to call it that. It was in this down channel here, and now you can see though this year it broke above this downtrend line, this channel that it was in, this falling channel, and it's been acting well ever since. An uptrend has emerged. So on the weekly chart, this is behaving beautifully. Technically, it's acting exactly like you want to see. Continuation patterns are resolving higher, it's basing out, and then it's trending higher. So everything's acting right on the weekly chart. If you go to the daily time frame, there's not much opportunity I see here. This is the range that we're kind of in, this 125 to 130 area. So that's what you have to look at. So the weekly time frame is in your favor. Now let's see if we can get a setup on the daily chart. For me, that would either be a breakout maybe above 130, new highs for this year, or if we came back down to this trend line or this horizontal support at 125, could look for that for some type of demonstration of support. Once again, maybe get a piece there. So I like gold. And I think it still looks pretty good. CERN, this is one I'm not familiar with. So let's take a look here. We'll start with the weekly chart. So similar comments here. This year was a year of sort of transition for this stock here. It was in a downtrend since 2015, very cleanly making lower highs, lower lows. That changed. Basically July is when we broke through this downtrend line, and it's been off to the races since. So you're getting a change of direction here. You have a much larger uptrend that this has been in. So things look good here on the weekly chart. If you go to the daily chart, again, you're going to see this just even more acceleration. I like it. There's momentum here. It's tough to chase this without a real sort of actionable base that it's emerging from. The last clean entry I would have seen would be trying to get involved with it on this very fast day, which is probably going to be very difficult to, but on the 3rd of this month. It's probably a real actionable day. Now that it's right here, it's tough to do much with it. If you're in it, trail your stop. That's all I could say. I wouldn't want to short this at all. I'd be looking for long opportunities. I do like it though, so good one right there. Gilead. So yeah, you can see I kind of have this drawn here. This is the weekly chart. Gilead's consolidating, right? It's had a monster run since 2012. Look at the move all the way from $13 to $120. And if you really kind of look at that big multi-year move, we're now just consolidating that move. This is bullish behavior if depending on what your time frame is, right? If you're trying to play this on intraday or the daily time frame for the past year, this is a bear market for you. But if you're looking at it from longer term context, this is healthy action. So you can see it's behaving very cleanly in this pattern right here. There's not too much else to say about it in the weekly chart. If you go down to the daily chart, you can see we're near the lower end of this kind of channel where buyers kind of step in, and this is sort of the rate that it's accelerating lower. So look for some support down here, and you can play this range until you have some type of upside resolve. If you want to continue to scale into this on the lows, that's a strategy right there. So Gilead, that's the way I'd look at it. Triple D, so this is one that we're long. We're long this actually. If we go to, let's start with the weekly chart. So this thing has been absolutely crushed for the past 3 years or so, since 2013, 2014. Horrible downtrend. Finally found some support down around $6. Amazing downside move. And the impressive move it had was from $6 to $18. So it tripled in a matter of 3.5 2.5 months. That's pretty significant, and that really kind of sets the stage of the change of character, kind of broken the downtrend, and now let's see if we can either start basing out or trending higher. So it really put in like this ABC pattern that, in some respects we do like to trade. It pulled back from those highs of $18, $19, and it found support at this 20 period, moved sideways, and now it's trying to lift back higher. That for us is a good pullback trade, something that we've been involved in since I'm not sure when our entry was, 14 or 14 and change was the entry as it started to emerge here. So we're not up tremendously on this trade, but we're involved in it, and we're playing this on a longer term time frame, or at least a bigger picture. We're looking to get back up to here and retest these old highs around $18, $19. That's our profit target. That's our target for this trade. I have no idea if it'll actually happen. I hope it does, but our stops are in place, and that's sort of the move that we're playing for. So I like Triple D. It's going to need time, right, to get back up here. It could take a couple of weeks, and we accept that and we understand that. For those of you who are just joining, feel free to ask, put some charts in there that you want to take a look at. I'm trying to get through these now. Can you go over that bad daily dark pool print of Qs? Yeah, so if we go to the Qs here, we had this kind of erroneous print up here. I don't consider myself an expert on all those late day prints or dark bull prints or spikers, whatever you want to call them. I'm not very well versed in that. I sort of ignore it just because if you go to the underlying, if you go to the NASDAQ or if you go to some of the other cash markets or look at it, that to me doesn't really play much of a reference. So for me, I just look at the Qs as basically saying, okay, this was literally the cutoff here, and this is grinding higher, 8 and 20, rising higher. It hasn't done anything wrong. It's been emotionally tough to stick with this trend, but it's been nothing, it's done nothing wrong. So as much as people may want to short this, or they don't want to buy it because, there's no pullback and it's just levitating higher, this is a healthy, trending, low volatility environment. This is what markets do in this type of state. So you need to just kind of adapt and be aware of it. Give yourself a wider stop. Don't look at markets as much, and you can stick with this type of trend. I don't own Qs, but we own components underneath it. Do I think we'll have a correction? Sure. We're 100%. We're definitely going to have a correction. When? I have no idea. I wouldn't bet for it now. I see no reason to. A correction comes when markets are acting erratic or at least starting to break through support. We're doing the exact opposite. We're trending higher. I understand complacency is high right now. I get that, but honestly, I'm going to stick with complacency and try and participate in the long side until I get a reason not to. It's the way I found to be able to make money. So yes, the correction will come, and there will be signs of it coming, and I'll adapt sort of accordingly. Yeah, I'm going to skip the VIX. I don't look at it. I don't try and do TA on it really, and I don't trade it. So I'm going to just skip it just because it's not my area of expertise. It's pretty much, it's going to be basically the one instrument that I don't look at or really trade or have comments on. And it's funny, I can't really comment on the relationships. I don't watch it too much, so I'm going to avoid that, unfortunately. MO Altria Group. So, yeah, this one has been in a nice uptrend on the weekly chart, right? Going all the way back to 2009. It's just been a monster, going from $15 all the way up to $68, paying a nice dividend along the way. It's now come back down to sort of some trend line of support here, especially if you're looking at that weekly time frame. You can see this accelerated trend line is almost being tested now, and the 20 period EMA has been acting as some pretty good support in this going back for quite some time. So this is where more or less you'd want to see buyers step up, and you're starting to sort of see that get demonstrated. I think right here you have a pretty good line in the sand to use. This $66 level. You had a nice little reversal bar here just a few days ago on the 8th. So if I were long this or looking to try and stay long this, I'd want to see it just hold above $66. If you want to give it some more room, use this trend line or use a prior swing low. But yeah, I like MO. I mean, it's a slow mover. CMG, yeah. So CMG is one that I've been watching. I also sort of believe that this is in some type of bottoming process. Again, I don't want to call like the bottom or say it has to be, you know, in that process, but volume really picking up. The slope of this, you know, sort of this sell-off has been slowing down, and it's been kind of wedging in this type of pattern here. If you want to, you know, draw these lines, they're a little subjective, of course, right? All trend lines are, but you know, it's now battling with this $400 level again. We briefly stayed below it for a couple of weeks, or at least a few days back here in June. Found some support, it came back down, so it's doing its thing, right? It's up, it's down, it's consolidating, it's tightening up, and I think it's worth watching right here. I don't see too much actionable trades unless you're trying to accumulate on the lows. I believe, you know, that's a potential strategy, but yeah, it's going to depend on what you're trying to do. Ultimately, you want to see this break above this downtrend line on some good volume, take out a prior pivot high. That's you know, that's sort of what I'd want to be looking at there. Any other questions or charts? Drop them in there. SAEX, something I've never looked at before. This is yeah, I don't know why this is trading so thin. I don't know much about this. It's so I don't really have much comment. It's been in a downtrend for the entire existence of this trading. I don't know if this is an OTC pink sheet or something, but it's just been in a downtrend. Hasn't changed. Volume is spiking. I'm not sure what this is. So it had a split 1 for 135. So this was what, a penny stock that split. It is doing nothing at all that would entice me to buy this. If it got above $66, maybe that'd be interesting, but that's all I'd have to say there. NYLD, so utility stock. Yeah, so on the weekly chart, I don't know what happened through 2015 here, but clearly got hammered, and it's based itself out, right? Found some ultimately found support around this 1050 level, and it's been just meandering higher here. It's a name I'm not familiar with. I'm assuming it pays a big dividend, or, you know, kind of a slow mover. It's emerging from a base, right? So it's doing what you do want to see. It's as long as it can hold, you know, the longer it can hold above, you know, 16 3/4 above this area, the healthier it becomes, because you got a nice little base bottoming formation of accumulation. You had a little bit of a breakout here throughout the end of July, pulling back, retesting that breakout level. You want to just see it hold above there. Looks pretty good. Slow mover, looks good though. GDX, yeah, so this one similar to gold, really. I mean I know the trajectories are a little different, but you can see this one's been behaving technically exactly what you want to see, right? It's been basing and breaking out, consolidating, breaking out, trending higher. Nothing's really changed. There's been a lot of panic in this name. There's a lot of people trying to short it, call the top. I mean, it's trending higher, right? It's doing all those things while emotions run high here. This was significant resistance. I remember doing this live stream about 3 or 4 weeks ago, or even 2 months ago. It was, in fact, 2 months ago. And 27, I talked about being an important level and a tough level that this may have trouble getting above, and it just cut right through it. And it's continuing to trend higher here. So if you look back, there's not a whole lot of, you know, previous resistance. Like this has room to float higher, and I know it's been in a steep uptrend, but it'll continue. At some point there will be some large correction, but once again, it plays to just kind of bet on this trend until you get more clear evidence that it's really not there. So I like it. It's right near 2016 highs, so I don't own it, but that's sort of the way I'm looking at it. OCLR, Semiconductor's name. This is one I'm not familiar with either. So it's got quite a bit of history of kind of boom and bust, and it looks like recently it's finding some support down here under $1 or right around $1. Yeah, it's lifting higher. So I mean, the clear reference point here is $5, where we kind of topped out, found resistance. Similar pattern here in 2016, and we just recently broke back out. So the real actionable signal was basically above here, you know, above this 530, 540 level. And as long as we're above there, we're trending higher. I like it. 8 period, it's testing that now. So yeah, I like this. This is something that you'd want to try and get aligned with the trend. You know, the trend is your friend, so try and get on the side of being long here, and looks pretty good. Doesn't look too actionable to me right yet, but looks pretty good. So yeah, Etsy had an explosive move here, I know, helped by earnings, and I was watching this earlier today as well, as this really started to accelerate again through this just brief kind of 5-day consolidation. So we have a nice base, you know, so let's go back to the IPO. It's been nothing but lower since the IPO. That was until this year, 2016, where it ultimately made some lows around $6. That's where buyers got aggressive. We carved out this nice base, and $10 was the lid on price for quite some time, until just about 2 weeks ago on the 1st, where we saw this big explosive move higher, 18% move to the upside. We saw follow through, and we saw follow through again from earnings. It consolidated tight, and now it's trying to lift again. So there's clearly momentum. It's a panic. It's a rush to allocate into Etsy here. If you're really nimble, you could buy today as some type of breakout, you know, to new highs here in this trend. It's, you know, you want to be position sized appropriately. You want to have your stops in, even if you want to use $13. I know it seems far away, but if you bought it today, use 13 as your stop. Position size accordingly. Maybe you get a couple of points out of this to the upside, but you're playing a stretch stock. You know, you're playing the momentum game, so you just got to be careful. You got to know when to kind of get out of this and just call it a quit if it wants to kind of roll back over or start to fade. But I like it. I mean, I don't own it. It's not something I would buy, even though I am a momentum trader. I wouldn't buy this today, but I see the merits behind it. It's a little too aggressive, a little too stretched. Not enough consolidation here for me to probably jump right back into this. Same time, that's probably why it's going to work. So, yeah, so that's sort of the way I think about Etsy. UNG, yeah, this is one we regularly cover. It really just not encouraging action here recently. It was holding support at 790, and it was basically kept telling people, you know, you can own it, you can keep it, you can trade it. Long side, as long as it's above $798, and it did that for, you know, throughout 2 months or so, but this past 3 days is where it really started to break below that level. I'm not a fan of owning this anymore. The only way I would really want to own natural gas on the long side is if we got some sharp reversal back above $798. So if this just turned out to be some false breakdown and we saw like a 12% ripper to the upside tomorrow or over the next few days, that would probably be interesting to me to get involved in it on the long side and trade against these lows. But for now, it's bears, sellers are in control. You know, how low do they go back down? I'm not sure. The weekly chart is now getting pretty vulnerable here, so you really don't want to see a weekly close down here. And if you do, it suddenly turns natural gas into a different type of picture of potentially a lower high getting put in on the weekly chart, and the downtrend just still firmly in control. It's not something you really want to see. Take a swig of coffee here. For anybody that's just joining, if you want to put a stock in the chart, stock in the chat, feel free to do so. AWK, utilities, it's interesting. What do you got? You guys are very interested in these individual utility names. So yeah, the similar story here, right? Long-term uptrend, very long-term uptrend. I mean, picture perfect. I mean, this is like this is what should be hung up on your wall if you're a trend trader, right? It's just this perfect kind of trend higher here ever since it IPO'd. So recently it basically was in this accelerated trend higher here, and you can see it's starting to kind of waver from this type of slope. It's getting really close to kind of breaking this accelerated trend line. So it's pulling back off the highs. It hasn't had a meaningful pullback in a long time, so this is healthy action. You want to see this. But now you want to know where can you get in if you're not in. Well, you need to see some signs of stabilization here. We're not seeing it yet. We'd want to see it either head lower and put in some type of more meaningful reversal bar. So for now, you got to be careful with it. If you want to try and scale into it on the long side, that's a strategy. But you can see what you're coming up against here. It's tough to just jump into this. The 8 and 20 are curling lower on the daily. I'd want to see that reverse. So as soon as you can get these back into a bullish alignment, that generally means you're in the process of at least recovering and stabilizing enough where you would consider looking at long entries. But for now, you got to be careful with this. It's at an inflection area if you want to like try and own this against 76 and do something kind of cute like that. Again, it's going to depend on your strategy, but you do want to try and be positioning long, or at least play. I guess you could be playing that immediate downside. AAOI, this thing is this one is AAOI. Yeah, recent earnings gapper. I sort of really dislike this type of chart. This really speaks nothing to me. I mean, the only case you could have made right here would be this is a nice island bottom, and it still arguably is, right? It hasn't officially closed that gap, so you do have an island bottom potential, right? Of kind of a bottom of a bottom, right? Island bottom. That's really, I mean, that's a great sort of powerful pattern to play because you have all of this trapped supply in here that now either has to cover if you're short, or if you're long, you need to buy it up. So if you're not long, you have to buy it up. But it's just fading into this gap here. So there's a lot of overhead resistance in here. If it comes back down and fills this gap, maybe you have some type of bounce trade, but I just really don't like this. It's a mess. This hasn't cleanly trended ever. This is the range that it's literally been a range-bound stock since its IPO. So it's just making this absolute pattern from a big structural standpoint. So, I mean, for me, get above $22 and that's interesting, but that could take months, years. For me, it's just in the middle of this range. So that's sort of the way I would look at it. UUP, yeah, so I covered this one yesterday too. This is the way I'm looking at it. Weekly chart, US dollar, consolidation in an uptrend. This is healthy action, healthy behavior from a long-term structural standpoint. But if you look at the past 6 or 7 months, or 4 or 5 months, you can see we're just channeling higher here. If we break below this channel, maybe we come back down and test this channel, right? So it's consolidation, right? It's consolidation. Depends what time frame you're looking at. It could just be messy. There could be a lot of back and forth. So it's just really messy. Sort of the way I'm looking at it there. Facebook. Facebook's getting real interesting here, right? Because it is pretty tight in this range. I will disclose we are long Facebook, right? We got involved in it about a week ago or so. So Facebook is getting real tight here, and it's getting my interest because whichever way this decides to go is probably going to lead to a sharp kind of 2-day push, at least 2 or 3 day push. So if it can start clearing above 126, I think you got your breakout signal higher. If it starts taking out this 124.50 area, I think you need to be concerned. You get support down here at 122.50. So you get those kind of two supports below us. It's been in an uptrend, 8 and 20, sharply still rising higher. So you still want to, you still want to believe Facebook's kind of innocent until proven guilty. And that's sort of the way I'd be looking at it. Yeah, FEYE, I don't know. This one was interesting. It had a really nice looking technical pattern here, and then earnings, like they often do, kind of screws it up. It was in this mean downtrend line, and then basically for the past year or so, it developed this very clean looking kind of head and shoulders tight, inverted head and shoulders tight pattern here. And you had this beautiful neckline break on the 28th. And but we all knew that we had earnings in just about a week, so it was tough to just try and go with that signal. You had the big gap down disappointment. I believe, like some of these others, FEYE is loosely in some type of bottoming process. It can be ugly and painful and a lot of back and forth. I don't think it's an easy trade. Do I think it can gap fill? Sure, I think it can. I mean, basically, it didn't take out. It came all the way down and retested these earnings day lows at 1380, and that was yesterday, right? Came all the way back down and kind of, for lack of a better, double bottomed off of it. And now it's launching higher, 5% up day. So it's constructive that it sharply pushed away from 1380. That's constructive, right? That is constructive in the short term. That could be your stop loss if you want to try and own it, play for a gap. Momentum's to the downside, but it can easily pull a Twitter, right? And similar situation where Twitter looked like death right here, and then it just kind of V-shaped higher. So it can happen. It's just not a high probability. stock for me. Nike's next one I just got asked about. So weekly chart here, monster uptrend, right? Nike's been nothing but higher, and then recently it's been putting in this kind of very healthy consolidation. Nothing wrong with this. This is healthy action, especially given how much it's run up. For me, like some of the other ones that we looked at, I want to see a break of this downtrend line, right? That's what's really going to get me excited back on the long side. So for me, I would say 58, 58.50, get above there, then you have some type of change of character, and then at least maybe you get a trade back up to the top end of the range, or you have something a little bit different that's starting to happen. But for now, it's still consolidating. It's still messy, right? If you could make a measured move argument to say like this is going to head back up to the top end of this range here, if this pivot low holds, there's a lot of different ways you can play it. It's just not so clean. So it depends. It depends what you're looking for. All right, let's take a look. Yeah, so adding some long positions on AWK. Yeah, I mean, again, I think you're at an inflection area here. So for me to add, like, again, it depends on what your adding process is, and if for a trade, like, I'm not interested in this at all for a trade. If this was an investment that I was trying to get into, yeah, you could buy 30% here. And again, this isn't advice. I'm not telling you to, but if you could start to scale into this as it goes lower. I don't love the averaging in at lower prices type of methodology. There's just a few different ways. It's tough to get into specifics without knowing your real thought process, what you're trying to achieve out of this. But it's at an inflection point for me. Again, I'd like to see that 8 and 20 curl over, and that'd be something interesting. Nugget. So yeah, we covered Nugget. Same thing as GDX, right? Uptrend, looks good. It's higher, right? Continues to do what it needs to do. It's a little volatile, it's a little whippy, but it's doing what it needs to do. It's heading higher, it's grinding higher. So look for GDX. It's the same thing. If you can rewind this video, it's kind of the same thoughts there. I'll look at Win. That's a new one there. So Win has been consolidating. It's had a nice move, nice kind of bottoming process that it emerged from earlier this year. And you can see it's just kind of basing out now very cleanly in this range. Something I'm keeping my eye on because it's pretty actionable. If it can start to get some consecutive closes above 103, it starts to get very interesting that this uptrend can continue. Not to mention, you have this longer term kind of basing resistance area. It's kind of, you could look at it even like an inverted, or however you want to, draw these, cup and handle, all that good stuff, right? Whatever you want to label this. But this is a pretty important area, this 105, and I think if you can start to get clear consecutive closes above this 103, 104 area, then you can start to emerge with a nice clean uptrend, and before you know it, we're back at 130. So I like Win. Weekly chart, you can see clearly got that change of character. It's been in an uptrend for a while. Downtrend for 2 years. Now it looks like it's trying to continue higher. So yeah, I like Win. All right, a couple more questions. Let's take a look at how our Twilio is doing. Is this coming off yet? Yeah, so it's still holding up there. That's good. So TSU. Yeah, so I would agree with that, right? A bit of a head and shoulders inverted that it's emerging from, right? Kind of got the head here if you want to draw it all out, but you get the neckline drawn there, you got the shoulders drawn there, and then you got the head right here. So yeah, you can see it's emerging higher now, it's grinding higher, and it's in a nice little uptrend. There's not a whole lot of previous heavy supply to the left of this. So yeah, I like this. It's trending higher on the weekly and the daily. I like it. Yep, that's good. All right, BITA. Let's take a look here. Longer term. I like long term. Yeah, so I like BITA. I think this is in the processing. It's the theme of this video. I've said this a lot, that things are in the process of bottoming out. I think this is a really significant area. right here, right around this 28.50 level, right? Hasn't been able to really convincingly take it out, except for briefly here we were above it. But for the most part, it's been consolidating under this level for over a year. I'd want to see that change of character. I'd want to see that momentum return on the upside. So taking out this resistance and holding above 20, I guess it's closer to $29. That's what I'd be interested in for long-term hold. I think you can have a real definable risk, you know, buying a breakout above 29 and then putting a stop, you know, down. You could keep a pretty tight stop at 25 bucks, 24 bucks, you know, 4 or 5 point stop to try and get 10 or 15, 20, 25 points out of this. I mean, it's a serious risk to reward if you're patient enough. If you want to hold this for 2 years, you know, that's the sort of the decision that you'd have to ask yourself. But I like it. It's a good one. Yeah, ULTA. So this one, just monster uptrend, right? A super accelerated uptrend recently. So there, you know, there's monthly time frame, long term. You know, we know what it's doing. Yeah, I mean, it's just tough to get involved in something like this. But this is that clean, like strong, low volatility grind higher. There's no, I mean, it's not even putting in any significant pullbacks, right? It's not even pulling back. It's just literally basing out, breaking out, basing out, breaking out, or just grinding higher, you know, 10 basis points a day. So this is something that you just kind of like need to own and forget about, and don't get sort of nervous over it. But look at this action. I mean, this is a stock that hindsight looks so easy, but it's psychologically probably insanely difficult to own because there's so much indecision, overlap. Like any day in this range, like in so many of these ranges, you could just stare at that chart and be like, this thing's going to break down any minute now. It's so tight. And then it just continues to just sort of grind higher. So it's great, but you know, how to get into this, you know, you just got to be careful, you know. So that's sort of the way I look at it. IBB, this one's been pulling back. We had a great trade in this a few weeks ago, you know, from about here to, you know, basically the top end before it started to turn back over. We got involved on this day right here. We sold out basically in here. So this is a nice trade for us recently. Haven't got back into it. I talked about it trying to potentially come back down here and retest this old resistance, and it sort of did that. It's clearly bouncing back a little bit more aggressively today, but it basically did come back. As long as it holds the 20 period in this 285 level, I think it's still constructive. You know, it's put in its sort of bottoming due diligence process here, and it's trying to emerge higher. So yeah, I like it. I think you could own it. I think it's something you want to be playing on the long side. If it's back below 285. That's when you'd have to expect more two-way action, or maybe the short side to kick back in, but I certainly like it. All right, I think I ran through all the questions. That was a lot of charts. Thanks everybody for coming. So I do these every once in a while. Sorry for the hiccups at the beginning, dog barking, no volume, all that good stuff. But thanks for watching, guys. Hope this video helped. And once again, if you're interested in how we trade, check out tradewars.com for more info. 1 trade a day, swing trading, momentum, 3, 4, 5 day holds for the most part, sometimes longer. And that's what we do. So thanks everybody for coming out. One last question, just because is CX a possible trade? Well, anything's a possible trade, right? I'm not going to tell you if something's a trade or not. But I mean, it's extended. I don't know what you're trying to do with it. It's breaking through resistance. It's trending higher. It's you know, had what, 7 or 8 days of upside action coming from 550 to 870. It's something I like, but I need more of a sturdy kind of base to see this thing break out of. I can't just own it here. I wouldn't just be able to buy this right where it is. But I like it. It's doing what it needs to do. So, excellent. So yeah, I know the stream's behind, so it's probably just catching up now. But thanks everybody for coming out. The recording, if you missed this, the recording will be out later today. You can rewatch this video, and if you want to stay up to date with all the latest videos that we do, just subscribe to the YouTube channel. I think it even alerts you if I do a live stream, if I'm not mistaken. But anyhow, thanks for coming out, guys. I'm gonna take this out here. If you have any questions, you can hit me up on Twitter or my website. Thanks.